Lately, I've been listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks by Esther and Jerry Hicks, reading the books and listening to the videos. And one thing that really struck me is that they talk about finding the better feeling emotion. That phrase hit me deeply because back when I was in a relationship with an alcoholic person, I realized that's exactly what they were doing. They were just trying to find that better feeling emotion. Today, I want to share a new perspective on the nature of addiction, not to excuse it, but to help you approach it from a different direction with love and compassion. Because when we shift how we see the struggle, we help to heal ourselves as well. Hi, my name is Michelle Fondin. I am the author of 12 published books, including Help, I Think My Loved One is an Alcoholic, a survival guide for lovers, family, and friends. And this is the only book I'm going to present today, as this really struck me hard as I was listening to those videos. Now, I'm going to explain it to you in just a minute, but I want to welcome you here if you are new to my channel and to this vlog. This is vlog number 18. I'm here with my friends Grogu and Gudetama. I also have my favorite tumbler, my Grogu tumbler with my Tocino Dandelion Caramel Nut Tea. And this helps me think more clearly to get started with helping you to understand the nature of the better feeling emotion and about moving into a higher vivibration. In August of 2024, I actually found a video of Esther Hicks channeling Abraham. Now, I had heard about this entity called Abraham for about the past 20 years, but I always thought it was a little bit weird. I didn't really know what it was, and so I didn't tune into it. However, in August of 2024, I saw that Esther Hicks was coming to San Diego, California, about an hour and a half from where I live. And so I attended an Abraham Hicks seminar. And during the seminar, they gave us this card. It's called the Emotional Guidance System. The Emotional Guidance System. It's from their book, Ask and It Is Given. And I began to learn this process of finding the better feeling emotion. Now, in fact, we are all constantly doing this. We're all trying to find something more pleasurable and moving away from something that is more painful. However, if we're stuck in those lower emotions, such as guilt or shame, the idea is to find the better feeling emotion to get out of that. But sometimes it's very difficult if your resting point are those more negative emotions, those lower vibrational frequencies of guilt, shame, and even blame or self-blame. It can be very challenging to move up to the better feeling, which starts at the feeling of contentment, according to the Abraham Hicks emotional scale model. Now, when I did my Elevate Your Twin Flame workshop, webinar workshop, I also integrated the work of David Hawkins from the book Power versus Force. They are very similar in nature, but when I was listening to Abraham Hicks and I was listening to something, in fact, they talked about someone who was addicted to drugs or alcohol, and then it totally hit me that the alcoholic, and we're going to focus more on alcoholism than drug addiction, but you can really interchange the two, that the alcoholic is really searching for that better feeling emotion through the drinking. The better feeling emotion. Now, I'm going to explain to you why. Finding a better feeling emotion is the path of least resistance. It's the path of least resistance in order to feeling better, because it can be very tough to be in those lower emotions, the more negative emotions, the lower vibrational frequencies, and you want relief. We all want relief. Whether it's if you have recently gone through a breakup and going shopping makes you feel better. You have that release. You have that you can finally breathe, right? Or if you've had a really tough time at work and you reach for the Ben & Jerry's ice cream in your refrigerator, you're really searching for that better feeling emotion or the path of least resistance to that better feeling emotion. So we all naturally do this. We try to find the path of least resistance or the path of most allowing in order to feel better and better. Now let's talk a little bit about the nature of addiction, especially alcohol use disorder and drug addiction. 1 out of every 10 people suffers from alcohol use disorder or drug addiction, or a combination of both. So that is literally 10% of the population. Now, of course, 10% of the population also affects a lot more of the population through their alcohol abuse. Therefore, that is the reason why you might have clicked on this video, because you're wondering, how can I be more compassionate toward my alcoholic loved one when it really seems they're doing this on purpose, or they're doing this to hurt me, or when I ask them to stop, they won't stop? One thing to note is that alcoholism is a multifaceted disease. It is physical and chemical, and yes, that is absolutely what it is. It alters the brain chemistry. And if you want to learn more, pick up my book. However, it is an emotional and relational disease as well. Now, someone might have a predisposition through their genes, their genetic makeup, to become an alcoholic, as an example. However, there must be a trigger. There must be a trigger. And typically, that trigger is something huge that happens in their life that leaves them in an emotional vacuum. In other words, they are left with very low vibrational feelings of guilt, shame, blame, self-blame, self-loathing, and self-hatred. Now, this perpetuates in nature because something big happened in their life that left them with these feelings that kickstarted the habit of drinking to cover up those feelings or reaching for that better feeling, because sometimes they will feel contentment once they start drinking, which is a far, far, far cry from the guilt and shame. And sometimes they might even feel that euphoric feeling through alcohol or drug use, which brings them all the way up to bliss or joy. However, there's a problem with that, because according to this emotional scale, finding the higher vibration and living from the higher vibration, when you use alcohol or drugs, what ends up happening is you fall back into those lower vibrational frequencies and those lower feelings once the effects of the drugs or alcohol wears off. And that's what happens. And it actually perpetuates the behavior, not only that chemical addiction, the physical addiction, but the emotional vacuum that the addict tends to fall into after all is said and done. And it leaves them back with those lower vibrational frequencies of blame, shame, guilt, self-blame, self-hatred, and self-loathing. Now, this is where you might come in. You might come in as a loved one and seeing this happen time and time again. And you, as someone who loves an addict, whether they are your mother, father, sister, brother, best friend, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband or wife, or your adult child, as an example, you are observing this behavior and you are seeing them in contentment or even joy and euphoria when they're under the influence. And that makes you a little mad, doesn't it? It makes you a little mad because you're like, what are you so happy about? 5 minutes ago, you were depressed and angry. And now you're fine and you're joking and you're the life of the party. And so it leaves you feeling very confused. Sometimes when we're in a relationship, with an alcoholic person, we tend to exacerbate the problem. Here's why. When we see our alcoholic loved one and we are in this codependent or enabling type relationship, because that is typically where the dynamic tends to go toward, we tend to berate them, right? We call them names, we berate them, we yell at them, we get angry, we get frustrated. We might even swear at them or hit them or hide the bottles or make fun of them even when they're drunk. What happens when you do that? There's a couple of things that happen. First, you are remaining in those lower vibrational frequencies yourself. So you're actually putting yourself into the lower categories of the lower vibrational frequencies instead of finding the better feeling emotion yourself. Secondarily, you are reinforcing their lower vibrational frequencies by pointing it out to them time and again. You see, one thing that most people do not know when they're dealing with an alcoholic loved one, because they see them at their high, right? They see them when they're drunk and they're silly and they're cracking jokes and they're the life of the party and they seem happy when they're with their drinking friends. One thing that most loved ones do not understand is that no one hates the alcoholic more than they hate themselves. No one has more blame toward the alcoholic than they blame themselves. No one has lower self-worth than the alcoholic has. And they really hate themselves more than you could ever hate them. And so when you're hating on them by berating them or punishing them or pointing the finger at them or judging them or making fun of them or calling them names, you are reinforcing everything that they already know to be in themselves. Now, of course, let's go back to everyone trying to find the better feeling emotion. Everyone trying to take the path of least resistance in order to getting to the better feeling thought and the better feeling emotion. Well, for the alcoholic, the better feeling thought, the better feeling emotion is that I can't deal with all of these bottom, low, rock bottom feelings. I can't deal with this right now. I don't even know how to begin processing it. But if I drink, I know that those feelings will temporarily go away, and that is my path of least resistance. Now, that is something that I totally did not understand. I didn't understand that for them, drinking is the path of least resistance. It is the path of most allowing. It is a lot harder to work through those negative emotions and the lower vibrational frequencies to go even up the scale into, and I'll show you what is next on the scale. So if you're in those guilt, unworthiness, that is at a number 21, which is right before number 22, which is fear, grief, despair, and depression, which a lot of alcoholics and drug addicts also deal with. But if you move up the emotional scale, you will find that a few lines up, there's like revenge and anger. So if they can bring themselves even to have revenge, feelings of revenge toward, for example, maybe the mother that was an alcoholic, or the father who abandoned them, or the father who abused them, even if they can conjure up some of that, it would take them out of that rock bottom emotion of guilt, shame, blame, lack of self-worth. But what they could really get to would be discouragement or even disappointment, and that would take them further up the emotional scale. Now, granted, most addicts are not going to get there alone. Alcoholism and drug addiction is a very lonely disease. It is a disease in which most people self-isolate, especially as the disease advances. And since they don't understand what is happening to them, they only understand that they are swimming in negative emotions, that they tend to alienate themselves from the people that they love because they're embarrassed, they are ashamed. They usually only get help in groups with others who have had the same experiences that they have had in their addiction. So when you point the finger, when you make fun of them, when you call them names, when you berate them, try to control their lives, or just get very angry and exasperated at them for drinking or for embarrassing you in public, you're just adding to what they're already feeling. Now, that's not to say that you can't feel your feelings too. Of course you can. But it's almost like you're throwing a rock at someone who is drowning instead of throwing them a life preserver. So how can you change this yourself? I speak a lot about this in my book, Help, I Think My Loved One's an Alcoholic. You need to find the better feeling thought and the better feeling emotion yourself. You see, the alcoholic is not doing this to you. Even if you're married to the person, even if they are the father or mother of your children, they're not doing this to you and they're not doing this to your children. They're doing this to themselves. And so that's what you really need to realize. You need to detach completely from the notion that they are somehow out to get you by doing this behavior. Even if they've promised you 1,000 times that they would stop, that they would get help, that they would go to AA meetings, that they would detox, even if they promised you a bazillion times, they're not doing this to you. They are doing it to themselves. So once you can detach from that and realize they're doing this to themselves, you can work on finding the better feeling emotion for yourself. And as you do that, as you move up the emotional scale yourself, you can have more love and compassion toward yourself, which in turn helps you have more love and compassion towards your alcoholic loved one, which in fact humanizes them. Because what we often do when we're in a relationship with an alcoholic is that we treat them like they're animals. And not even the good domestic kind. We treat them like they're wild beasts. And we treat them like they're garbage. And we treat them like someone that we do not respect. And so it's all a reflection back on how you are currently treating yourself and how you are feeling about yourself. So the assessment you can do with yourself is like, how have I personally been feeling independent of what my alcoholic loved one is doing? Have I been feeling guilty? Have I been feeling unworthy? Have I been feeling shame? Have I been having self-blame, thinking I could control them or control the drinking, which you can't? Now, some tools lift us higher, right? Of course, finding the better feeling thought, the better feeling emotion through drinking is what the alcoholic is going to do because that is the easiest for them. That is something they found that is actually easier than wallowing in the pain of the lower vibrational frequencies and the more negative emotions. That is the one they found. However, it is up to them to discover a way out, a better way. And of course, there are many programs that can help them with this, AA being one of them, Narcotics Anonymous being another one of them. They could go to Celebrate Recovery, which is a more Christian-based one. Usually therapy does not help unless if it's in conjunction with going through AA. However, for you, you could certainly attend Al-Anon family groups if there is someone in your life that you must deal with who is an alcoholic or drug addict, or you grew up with a parent, for example, who is an alcoholic or a drug addict. It's going to help you find that better feeling emotion. Once you detach from the responsibility for their emotions, you need to take back your power and start to honor your emotional guidance system. You can do this through the power of meditation. You can do it through the power of therapy. You can do it through the power of anything else positive that makes you feel good, whether it's eating better, exercising, taking a dance class, finding a hobby that illuminates your soul. The best way to deal with an alcoholic loved one is for you to move up the vibrational emotional scale yourself. Because two people who are drowning are both going to drown. But if one person is elevated higher, maybe all the way up from the helicopter circling around the drowning person, you can help them because you can see the bigger picture, right? You can actually see the bigger picture, and maybe they will reach up toward that helicopter even if they are drowning. And if you have been mired in those lower frequencies, if you have been mired in those lower emotions for a long time, rest assured it takes some time before you can take that leap from depression, fear, anger, or even revenge up into joy, bliss, and empowerment. But it is not impossible. Just know that. You are not here to fix them. They need to fix themselves, and they need to discover a way into a better emotional feeling that doesn't involve drinking or drugging. And they can do this by discovering that there are other people that have done it. And that is not your job. Your job is not to fix them. Your job is to help yourself become empowered through moving your vibrational frequency higher and higher. If you want to learn more about your emotional guidance system, I would say check out that book, Ask and It Is Given by Esther and Jerry Hicks. And if you want to learn more about how you can navigate your relationship with your alcoholic loved one, whatever that relationship dynamic happens to be, I would highly recommend this book, Help, I Think My Loved One is an Alcoholic, a survival guide for lovers, family, and friends. In the book, I interviewed 10 alcoholics in long-term recovery and asked them every question under the sun pertaining to what goes on in their brains and also what they would say to their alcoholic loved ones if they were still in the midst of the addiction. It's a great read. It's an easy read. It is a great reference guide for you to fully grasp the fact that them getting to a better emotional place so that they can then heal themselves from their addiction is not your job. It is only your job to disengage from that long enough so that you can find that better feeling place inside of yourself so that you too can live in joy, bliss, and empowerment. I hope this was helpful. I want to thank you so much for joining me here today. Thank you for subscribing to my channel below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications. Thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. Now, this is the most important piece. Since we all know someone who has someone who might be an alcoholic or addict, please share this video with them, send it to them, post it on your Facebook page. But this is really going to help start the wheels turning in their head to help them be more compassionate and understanding of their alcoholic loved one, which in turn brings more compassion and understanding to themselves. Thank you so much for your support of my channel in every way. You can purchase one of my books, join my meditation course, check out my website. There's a lot of resources there. And I will see you in the next video.